The horse is due for shoeing. It's been shod 5 weeks ago, and you'll see the irregular growth in the feet has caused this horse to be very pigeon-toed, and it's quite obvious by the flare on the inside of these front feet. But to get this correct, we need to first of all work out whether the horse is left-handed or right-handed, because, as I say, the object of the exercise is to get this horse to feel like it's ambidextrous, in other words, very, very balanced in both front feet. We can't visually see that one foot is bigger than the other, indicating left or right-handedness, and we can go down with our fingers and feel the top of the coronary band, and you feel the difference between the two. And the off fore is marginally bigger across the top of the coronary band than what the near fore is. So we must start working on the off forefoot first, and then come to the near forefoot, and then go to the near hind foot, which is diagonally opposite the strong front foot is the strong hind foot, and the one we finish up on is the off hind foot, in that order. And we can only get this horse balanced mathematically and symmetrically by going in that fashion. Otherwise we'll start on the small foot first and bring that down too small. And when we get to the big foot, we find that now we can't reduce it small enough to try and balance the feet. See, what we're trying to do is to make this horse feel like he's ambidextrous, or she. Now the object of this whole exercise is to get the horse to stand straight and travel straight and correct any of the impediments in the new growth and the overgrowth. So we must have a correct hoof pastern angle down the front here, and you can see the overgrowth has caused this toe to be very long with this broken out hoof pastern angle, and a different angle on this one here as well. And so we pick up this off fore, ask her to just kindly here, pick it up, and you see in there, in about a square foot area, is where this horse is quite comfortable. If we bring this leg out too far, the opposite hind leg will come across underneath there, and the horse will fall in on top of us. So you've got to be able to work in this happy spot to keep the horse comfortable. And this means stepping over the leg in order to remove the shoe, and bending your outside leg in here so that you can hold this foot in this comfortable spot with the horse. It's not very comfortable for you, but that's beside the point. The point is that it's comfortable for the horse. If I stand straight up there, I'm very comfortable, but the horse isn't. It's stretching it in the shoulder here. So I've got to get back into that happy spot there. And then use your pull-offs to get underneath that shoe and just lever it against the bottom of the hoof to lift that shoe off the hoof. Checking that we've got 6 nail heads there, make sure you've got 6 nail shanks come out with the shoe. That's important to know that we've got all of these nail shanks have come off with the shoe, otherwise we've got to go back in and find the one that's missing and get it out of that hoof before we start doing any further work. Identify the tip of the frog, like this, and the critical heel junction back here. Find that active tip of the frog in there. And straight side down here to the critical heel. But don't reduce the top of the frog, just simply line it up down through here to make sure you can see the actual live tip of the frog. And you can see in here the amount of sole that's built up in this horse's hoof. We need now to concave this sole and take out all the dirt, all the excess sole that's built up. And you see here through here where the bars are, the horse is actually starting to walk on that bar and walk on the sole. The sole needs to be concave. And it's coming out quite easily because it's ready to come out. All that there, it's just the excess sole. And go down and find the junction of where the clean sole meets the frog, and then clean the sole out in a nice concave fashion to where it meets the hoof wall. all the way around. And into there. And now I run my knife around this way to see where that junction is, where the clean sole meets the hoof wall. And that gives me a pretty good idea of exactly what to cut off. Now if I mark the tip of the frog and put a little line across there, that's a reference point. You can see here where the overgrowth is on this hoof. Now we're taking this down to a flush fit. So we're taking the hoof wall down to where the sole meets it and leaving it about 1 millimetre up for preparation for the shoe. So if I put the nippers there and I start at the front half of the hoof and just cut that down flush with the sole, or about 1 millimetre up, in the front half of the hook, and then touch it with the rasp, swapping hands with the rasp, go one way and then go the other. And you'll see here now, you've got this extra thickness in the hoof wall in the front, and that's where the flare is due to the overgrowth. The real thickness of this hoof capsule should be about 3/8 of an inch thick. In other words, all that excess there outside that black line needs to be shaved off in order to get a nice symmetrical front of the hoof. Because at the moment, we put the hoof line on there with it level with that mark on we put on the tip of the frog. Out at the front it measures 7, but to the buttresses of the heel here it measures 5. So we mustn't be lowering the heel until we've got the front of the hoof correct. And by correct, I mean the correct thickness of this capsule around the front. And by my mark there, it'll come back to about 6. And then it'll be very easy then to tell where to put the heels. And so we must go forward now and rasp this front of this hoof down to reduce the flaring. Now looking down over the coronary band, we can see the irregular shape of this hoof, and remembering that black mark I put underneath there, if I look at the shape of this coronary band and run a little pencil mark around the front here, and you'll see that's the bit there that I have to reduce, just in the front half of the hoof only. So using the rough side of the rasp, go around there and just follow the nice symmetrical shape of this coronary band to correct the flaring in the front of this hoof. Now you notice I swap hands rather than going on the inside and the outside of the leg. I do it all from the outside here. The traditional way of doing this is to do this inside part here from outside and then do this. Come around inside to do the outside edge of the hoof. Now this is what I call the suicide position, because if a horse panics and runs forward, you go straight underneath the horse. Okay, we've got good control here because we're in a very safely designed shoeing bay, but you're not always going to be in a situation like this. So this is what I call the suicide position. Far better to do it all from one side, this way, and just simply swap hands, holding the leg with the left hand, using the rasp in the right hand to get that down. And you notice I'm only rasping up about clinch height, no higher, and then swap hands. Hold the hoof with your right hand, rasp in your left hand up against the forearm so that you've got more control. And just roll it around the edge of the hoof like that. And it's a good idea at this stage just to feather that sharp edge that you've created there. I've had lots of cut fingers from these sharp edges left by the rasp. Now we'll see what's happening underneath. You've now got a nice shape in the front of the hoof, the mirror image of this coronary band. So now, having reduced that toe back to the black line there, we've now got a nice even thickness of hoof capsule in the toe, and the final measurement there is 6 1/4. You can see to that point. So if we come back here to the heel and measure 6 1/4, it's actually there, and across here to 6 1/4 is there, right to the bottom there. So that's where we have to lower these heels down to in order to get this hoof balanced properly. If we then go across here and make a mark in the middle of the frog, it's about there, and put the base of this pyramid on that line, 19 mm back from the tip, is the widest part of the hoof. And in here we've got a huge irregularity because of the flaring. You've got 6 1/2 on the inside and 7 1/4 on the outside, and that's that flare that we were looking at a moment ago. So first of all, step out from the leg. Now we've marked these heels, and hold the leg at the fetlock joint and look down here and across those two lines, down the back of the pastern and across those two lines, to make sure that we've got these even. Now it appears in here we've got to take quite a bit more off the inside, but still a lot on the outside as well to get this T-square right. Because remember, this horse is pigeon-toed. Now we're going to lower these heels down to these where these black marks are by just simply cutting and joining what we've done up the front of the hoof with the back of the hoof here, like that. Same on this side. Keep it coming around. And go straight down into there. And then slightly grasp it. Get that nice and flat through there. And you can see in here the irregularity now is quite obvious when we look at the measurement across the widest part of the hoof. You can see it's 6 1/2 there, but it's 7 1/4 there, and this is because of this huge flare on the outside and a little bit on the inside there. So what we must do now is go forward with this hoof and reduce this outside flare, that part there, and also this part just here. Use my black pen here just to mark where you can see where the actual flare is, and you can see the flare there, and that's the 7 1/4 we've got on the outside. It's just that bit of flare there. And see, it's contrary to the shape of the coronary band anyway. And now, just lightly rasp this around here to take that flare in. Don't use your rasp too heavy. I use all my tools with almost a fingertip touch. If you rasp too heavy, you hold your rasp like it, and your knuckles go white, your chances are you're going to take off too much hoof. So just go lightly with it. It's better to go back and do it 2 or 3 times to get it right. Take a little bit off each time than to take it all off and have it done wrong. And now we've got a nice symmetrical hoof. It's still a bit flat on the inside, but we can't help that at the moment. You'll see here that even though we've got this foot balanced underneath, it's still tending to be pigeon-toed. That's because of the deviation in the pastern here. And we can't be fixing that. This is a mature horse. If we tried to straighten that up too much, we would just send the horse lame, because we've got a realignment of the pedal bone inside that doesn't want to be realigned because it's already maturely set where it is. Okay, so you're always going to have a pigeon-toed horse. I can take out a little bit more of this bar back in here now, just to relieve that. Because we've been working on this hoof, and we've got it now trimmed up to its new level, the sole starts to sink just a little bit. We need to bear in mind that in order to fit a shoe on there, we just have to keep this pared back a little bit so that there's no pressure under the shoe. Looking down the back here now, we've got a nice straight T-square down through there. I've left it a little high just there. So now I just take that little bit off This is your final touch-up. Whatever the measurement is now, it should be pretty near fixed. We've got 6 1/4 at the toe, and back here at the heel we've got 6 1/4 across there and across here. Okay? With your lateral and medial, we'll measure this. You've got a bit under 6 1/2 on the inside. Come on, no, behave yourself. And a bit over 6 1/2 on the outside. Now that's because of the distortion in the hoof, and possibly we can't get this exactly symmetrical at the moment. But we will get it next time. As long as we shoe this horse on its correct shoeing intervals, this hoof will start to change. We've selected a shoe, and knowing what the measurements are in the hoof, if we put the same measurement at the toe there, which is about 6 1/4, we should also have 6 1/4 back at the heel. Alright? And if it goes sideways, it's a tad under 6 1/2 on the inside and a bit over 6 1/2 on the outside. Well, you can see this shoe is going to go fairly close. We may have to just bump the outside in a little bit, but let's have a look. We'll put it on the hoof and see how it goes. This is a lightweight Australian-made concave shoe. We'll try this shoe on the foot. And if I hold it at the toe, you can see it's a pretty good fit. It actually fits back to the buttresses of the heel, the new buttresses of the heel where I put it. And so now I can mark and cut that toe clip in there by using my nippers, and just do a neat little V in there, going back down the hoof that way, along the profile of the angle of the front of the hoof, and pop the shoe on. Now if the shoe fits snugly in the front of the hoof like that, then that's exactly where it has to be. Now I can feel now this shoe is just a little bit wide now on the sides because of the oval shape of this hoof. We know it's not quite symmetrical, but we now have to fit the shoe to what hoof she's got. So I need to go to the angle now and just straighten these sides up a little bit, and that will help the coverage back at the heel a little bit more too. Okay, put the shoe across the angle like this, and just flatten that side a little bit to make the shoe more elongated. And then go back over the turning cam and bring the sides of the shoe in, like this. Take a little bit there, get the shoe flat, and measure it. Are we right on the sides? A bit under 6 1/2 and a bit under 6 1/2. So in all probability this shoe now will be the correct size for that hoof. Measure the toe again. There's actually 6 1/4 at the toe and 6 1/4 at the heels. It should be perfect. But what we need to do is to make the other shoe up exactly the same as this one. While we're here, saves time. Bring that toe clip back just a little bit. It's important that the toe clip be bent back just a shade to fit the profile of the front of the hoof. Because if we leave that toe clip pointing straight up, as we're nailing the shoe on, it'll slip back, and then we get a bull-nosed looking front foot. Put it against this foot. And there you have two identical shaped shoes. So now we've shaped this shoe up to fit the already prepared hoof. It fits all around very nicely. Go in here and nail it. First nail, twist it out and twist it off. Second nail on the opposite side, parallel with the angle of the hoof wall on the outside. Twist it out, twist it off. I put all my nail bits back in the box because in there I've got a magnet that actually picks them all up. And once a week I just go and empty the magnet out. I've also got a magnet on the end of my hammer handle. If I drop a nail, I can actually pick it up again without having to go chasing it. It's a good idea. Saves a bit of time. You notice here I've nailed the shoe on with 3 nails in the middle of the shoe. It's the strongest part of the hoof, but it also gives me a good balance in the hoof as well. By using a clinching block, and use the same number of hits on every nail. Now a lot of people have said you've just pulled down all one side before you pull down the other side. Shouldn't you alternate this clinching? I don't think, and I've never believed that it made any significant difference to the comfort of the horse or the reliability of the shoe. If you're comfortable doing one side then doing the other, that's fine. But in actual fact it slows your process down quite considerably, and speed is of the essence with these horses to keep them comfortable and get them done in a professional time within the comfort zone of the horse. Get that bit of curl hook off. And then touch up the nails with a light rasp to get the burr off the end that we've created. When we twisted those nails off, it burred the end of the nail, and so the clinch won't come down smooth. So I just level up all of those nails and make the end of the nail nice and square. You get to reshoe a lot of horses over and over and over again, and I find that when I come back with my clinch cutter to actually unclinch this shoe, because I've left this nail square on the end, it's much easier to pick the clinch up and unfold it. Clinching block underneath and hammer twist. The outside 3. Just move the hoof across to the inside of your leg so you can get to that, instead of going around into that suicide position. Tap the toe clip back, and basically what you've got there is a finished hoof. Just run the rasp lightly over to make sure everything's fixed. There's nothing protruding past the shoe, which there shouldn't be at this stage. It's a very light touch up over the nail, and then run a little bevel around the leading edge of the hoof where it meets the shoe. Like that. To finish off, just reseal the hoof with a little bit of good quality hoof oil. Like that. And finished. Now take the shoe off. Unclinch these 6 nails. And lift the shoe. This is called a shoe puller and spreader. It's got these grips on the outside, and if ever you need to just spread the shoe a little bit, the idea of these is you put it in there and just simply open the handles and it spreads the heels of the shoe. So it's a shoe puller and the spreader. Going in here behind your last nail and just lever the shoe up. The inside. The idea is to pull the shoe off by lifting it up so you don't tear any of this hoof wall with the nail. Check we've got 6 nails. That's fine. In the box. Now we can clean the dirt out. a massive amount of sole in here. Find the tip of the frog. And the critical junction back here at the heels. Not reducing the height of the frog here at all, just simply lining it up from the tip back to the critical junction here back at the heel. And opening all out through there. Now you'll see the bars of the hoof. This has actually come up so high because the bar grows 30% quicker than the rest of the hoof capsule. And we get to this point where the bar becomes weight bearing and it'll cause lameness. When you get a lot of sole in here and it's very hard, I use something like a sole chisel to get in there. And you have a look at this. You get right underneath there and take the whole lot out like that. Now we can use the sole knife. Get in there and clean it out down to the junction where the clean sole meets the bottom of the frog, and then pare the sole out. All this sole that's coming out is only the old crusty sole, the bit that's exfoliating and dying off. And come around here with your knife into there and clean all this out. If you don't go down into here, you get this thrush starting to build up in there and it really smells. So this is just good housekeeping. By doing this is to get in there and make sure that the hoof can actually breathe down in this area and stop any fungal infections from arising out of it. Now I can run the tip of this knife right around there to identify that junction of where the clean sole meets the hoof wall in that fashion. And you can see quite clearly here how this then identifies the growth factor that's in the hoof. If I mark the tip of the frog, and I'll put the ruler on there to measure this. The existing foot measures 7 to the toe, but to the existing buttress of the heel, this one actually measures 5.5. So first of all, we need to go down now and dress the front half of this hoof wall down to where it meets the live sole. So now using the nippers and going flat and level, with the nippers on the inside edge of that junction there. Go very carefully around here, keep it flat and level, and trim off the excess hoof in the toe area. Like that. Now touch it with a rasp. And you see here, what we have is a huge thickening of the hoof wall in the front of the hoof. And it's got to be reduced back to an even thickness, which will be around about there. Everything outside that line there is excess, and it's the stretch, the flare in the front of the hoof due to the overgrowth. Okay, looking down over the corollary band, I'm just going to take this hoof wall down in that fashion, just in the toe, in the front part of the foot. So using the rasp, that fashion. A nice even hoof wall from the top down through there. We've just reduced that flare in the front. That's it. Where the 19mm mark part is in the hoof, and it's just there. That's the centre point of balance in this foot. We put that on there at 6 1/4 to the toe. If we look back here at 6 1/4, it's just there, but over here it's down there. So we've actually got a lot more to come off the outside here than what we have on the inside to straighten this hoof up. There's very little to come off the inside, but maximum to come off the outside. Okay, so to get the correct measurement in the heel now, 6 1/4 at the toe, the existing buttress of the heel was only 5 1/2, and so to get the extra measurement in the heel, by lowering we actually make them longer because of the angle of the back of the heel, which slopes up and away from the ground. So by lowering these heels we're actually making the bottom of the hoof longer by coming back into here. Cut this down then. Join the front half up with the back half, like that. The inside one, we've got a lot to nip off there, so I'll just do it with a rasp. Step out from the leg, hold it at the fetlock joint, and just look down over here and make sure you've got a nice even T-square through there, and flat and level all the way through. We've got a couple of high spots in here. There's one just there and one just over there. Right. So we've got this T-square down the back here. Now we can check the lateral medial measurement by going across where I've marked that 19mm mark is the widest part of the hoof. And we've actually got 6 1/2 there and a bit over 6 1/2 there. And you can see there the extra thickness in the hoof wall through there. That's the flare that's still underneath here. If I can do this quickly from here just to show you how by reducing that flare down at the bottom, only down at the bottom, I'm going to bring this hoof back into shape, and a little bit more there. Okay, you've got 6 1/2 on the outside and 6 1/2 on the inside. You've got a flat level T-square through there. If anything, I can probably drop this one just a little bit more, which I'll do so. Okay. Now, the shoe. This shoe is exactly the same size as that shoe. It's the same shape. You saw that initially. If we pop that back on there and line the heels up and put a little niche in there where the toe clip's going to be. No, just hang on a minute. And there it is there. It starts at the toe where it should do, it finishes at the heel where it should finish. And it's a perfect fit. Just a little bit of a rise out here. We need to take this foot forward and just rasp that bit of flare down, and also bring this shoe out just a little bit. This is just the fullness back in that heel compared with the relative straightness of the shoe. So that's just the individual fitting that we need to do in a shoe to fit one foot or the other foot. That's quite acceptable. But the interesting thing is that both of these feet now measure exactly the same mathematical balance measurement in the bottom of the hoof, where before the feet were totally different. The horse is still going to be pigeon-toed because that's the way its bone structure is. It's an adult horse. But at least now, with these heels level, the foot's going to come through and land on the ground evenly, go flat and take off. I've got a little magnet in the end of the hammer here, and if I drop a nail, it allows me to go down and pick that nail up. So any of the bits and pieces that I drop, I can pick up with the magnet in the end of this hammer handle. Just cleaning out underneath the nails, take that bit of old hoof off from under there, so the nails will sit down properly. Now that nail there has gone into an old hole, and it's probably not a good one to leave there, so I'll more than likely take that out and just have two nails on the inside instead of three. There's a little point in putting a nail into a weaker spot part of the hoof. You're okay in there with two nails instead of three. Now, where I've twisted the nails off with the hammer and left a burr on the end, I can take that burr off and square the end of those nails up so that the clinch comes down nice and neat and even, and when I come back to clinch those nails with my clinch cutter, because it's square on the end, I can pick those clinches up very easily and pull them out. It just makes re-shoeing the horse so much easier. Now to finish off, just check that everything is where it should be, that there's nothing hanging out, lightly over the nails, like that. And then a little bevel between the leading edge of the hoof and the shoe. Just like that. That just stops the hoof as it's growing, popping out over the edge of the shoe. In this Australian climate, this is just good housekeeping. So the finished article with these front feet is that we've still ended up with a pigeon-toed horse, and the reason for that is purely conformational. A pigeon-toed horse is not an unsound horse. In fact, they're very good for stock work because they can turn one way and the other very easily. But if you look at the conformation of this front leg and imagine the knee joint as a circle, for that leg to be straight, the cannon bone would have to come off the middle of the circle, and it doesn't, it's set to the outside, it's over there. And then you come down your view, the fetlock joint has another circle, and the pastern is actually bent that way, instead of being straight down there. There's a straight line, and that's where the pastern is at the moment. And so the horse is always going to be pigeon-toed. The important thing is to understand that when we look at that leg, from holding it from behind at the fetlock joint, and we're looking down that line of the pastern, the important thing is that we have these heels level, so that when this foot comes through, regardless of whether it's pigeon or splay-footed, the heels are going to land evenly on the ground, the hoof will go flat and then it'll take off again. The tendency with pigeon-toed horses is always that they'll grow this extra flare on the inside because the leg is going that way the whole time. And so the hoof flares to the inside more. And so it's not a problem when we're shoeing them. We mustn't assume in a mature horse that we can magically straighten this leg up, because we'll end up with the horse very lame. Because at the moment, with the pastern going that way, the pedal bone is actually rotated a little bit to the outside, inside the hoof, to get underneath the bony column of the leg. And so it's already rotated there. If we try and drop the inside to the point where we're going to turn the foot out, then we're going to cause the pedal bone to want to re-rotate back that way against the laminae that holds the pedal bone to the hoof capsule. And that re-rotation is what will cause the horse lameness. And it'll stay lame until the hoof grows crooked again to the inside and lines up where the distorted pedal bone is. So it's important to understand that. Nothing wrong with a pigeon-toed horse. It's just that you've got a higher maintenance on it by way of having to correct the flares all the time. You'll see here how this horse is standing very cow-hocked behind. The toes are poked out that way. You'll notice also when you look at these cow-hocked horses, it's nice and round on top, but from the hip down, you're virtually slab-sided. And that's simply because she's standing so cow-hocked. If we can straighten this hock up by straightening the foot up and putting the leg there, the horse will develop an outside muscle here. At the moment the leg is swinging through on the inside, it's actually doing an S-bend to go forward. And it's only under the influence of this bottom of the hoof being unlevel. So that's what we must straighten up. Getting a bit of dirt out of here. There's a whole lot of sole build up through here. And take the shoe off. Go down here and find the tip of the front. Seven 1/4 to the toe. This heel here is actually 5 1/2, but that one up there is only at 5, so you can see that the heels aren't level, they've grown very, very crooked. And all the growth basically is more to the inside of the hoof. I'll just show you where it is. It's from there, it comes right around into here. So you can see there's a lot more distortion on the inside edge of this hoof than the outside. I'll just mark here where the hoof has to come off. And it's basically all this part of the flaring through here. need to come down. Now we have 6.5 at the toe, whereas before it was about 7.25. So 6.5 back here at the heel, is that one just there? And this one across here actually has to go down to there. We've got to cut more off this heel than off that heel, but it's the flare on the inside that's causing a lot of problems as well as the height in the heel. And the inside one, I'll just use the right thing. Look down through the hook, get it level. Now attend to that flare on the inside there. Let's have a look and see how we're going here with the measurement. 6.5 at the toe, 6.5 there and 6.5 here. We've got a nice even T-square down through here and flat all the way through. To check the lateral medial measurement, we've got 6.25 there and 6 on the inside. So there's still a bit of a flare on the outside. We need to attend to that. Taking a little bit of that hoof wall off there. And that will be it. Now we fit this shoe on here. Heels are level. Mark where the toe clip's going to be. And cut a little divot out the toe clip. And now the shoe fits perfectly all the way around, we can nail it on. Flat side to the outside of the nail. Twist it out and twist it off. Flat side to the outside, parallel with the hook wall. Twist it out and twist it off. Now clinch up. Got plenty of front contact with the ground there. The heels are level. The shoe is nice and symmetrical. Up forward on the knee. Once again into the happy spot here. Just there like that. Clean out under the nail. And you notice I never lose contact with the horse at some stage or other. I've always got my arm there, or if I'm going on the inside with my right hand, I've got my left hand on the hoof. This is for safety, so that I can feel what the horse is is doing if it's going to move suddenly. I've got contact with it on top of my knee. Trim those nails back and then hammer clinch. Tap the toe clip in and then go lightly rasp over to finish it off. Very often you can't just take this sole out like this, but this horse has been in an irrigated pasture and these soles are just, they're nice and soft. See that nice waxy surface through there? We've gone down to the bottom of the frog and it's just left a beautiful, easy line to follow all the way around there. So you've got a nice clean concave sole from down in the frog right out to where it meets the hoof capsule. That immediately identifies the flaring in the hoof wall, which we were talking about on the other side. This part here has to come back in. The hoof should be more diamond shaped like that. So you can see the flaring out there and the flaring out there is what's allowing, the width out there is allowing this flare to come up at back, near the back here. And just mark this where it has to come off. Just through there, a little bit at the toe, but through there. Got the toe capsule where we want it. Now go back and measure that. It's 6.5 to the toe, same as the other foot. There's 6.5 to there. And across here, 6.5 is to there. So those two heels need to be just dropped down. This one a little bit more than that one. Basically it's nowhere near as much distortion in this foot because this is actually the horse's smaller hind foot. Check this level and flat down here. And then just dress a little bit of flaring around the bottom there. 6.5. I've just got to drop that one a bit, bees whisker more. Yeah, even. Now we go across here. We've got 6 and 6. Lateral medial measurement is correct. Relieve this bit of salt through here. Take that a little bit in there. Clean this up in here. Fit the shoe onto the hoof. The heel's level. And cut a little niche out with the toe clip. And now the shoe fits flush all the way around. It's level and flat, there's no message, there's no unevenness in the sole, in the hoof wall. And you can go ahead now and nail it on. I'm using a BH4 nail, flat side to the outside, and parallel the outside of the hoof wall. It'll come out 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom, where it's meant to come out. That one's going to go in the front. And this one back here. Now the shoe should measure exactly what the hoof measured in the first place. 6.5 to the toe and 6.5 to the heels. So the shoe is only the end result of how you've set the hoof up to begin with. Nothing should change. It's important that the shoes must finish at the buttress of the heel, not hang over. Same number of hits with the same pressure on every nail, so that that shoe feels like it's pulled down evenly on the hoof and comfortable for the horse. Clean under the nails. I'll say again, just in case you missed it before, the old-fashioned way of doing this was to use a rasp under there. But it did two things. It put a horizontal cut in the hoof wall which actually weakened the hoof tubules in the hoof wall, and it also was in danger of nicking the underside shank of the nail. So when you bent the nail down, in a week or two when the nails become crystallised, the clinch will just break off. This way, you're not damaging that nail or the hoof at all. You're just simply taking out that little bit of bird over hoof that's underneath the nail as it's pulled down. Lightly brush the end of those nails to get them all a nice same length and square on the end. Like that. And then hammer clinch. Those nails are now all nice and smooth. They're bumped right down level, flush with the hook. And the only one thing left to do is just give them a light rasp to take any burring off. And the job's finished. Just a light through that edge there. You take that sharp edge off the hook where it meets the shoe. And finish off with a brush. And while you're doing that, you might as well do your own. It just keeps them nice and supple. Part of the assessment should always be to check the gait of the horse before and after trimming, to check that you have improved or corrected any hoof problems and that you have not missed any. To remove the shoes, the clinchers must be straightened out or filed off so that when the shoe is lifted there's no damage to the sensitive laminate. I hear so many complaints from horse owners that the farrier simply pulls the shoes off without undoing the clinchers. This is very painful for the horse and shows a total lack of understanding. Farriers taking shortcuts like this should not be working with horses. After trimming for shoe preparation, we must allow the horse a short time to stand weight bearing on the hoof, to allow the sole movement in the toe before applying shoes. This avoids sole pressure under the shoe. By the time you have prepared the shoe, the sole will have settled permanently. You can then readjust the sole without further risk of movement. This downward sole movement is more noticeable in horses with angular leg deformities. In extreme cases, more time should be allowed as the sole can drop more than once. I shoe one horse where the sole dropped 3 times before it settled, but this is the only horse I have found like this in 52 years. The ground surface of the correctly prepared hoof should be a mirror image of the normal or ideal coronary band. In other words, round or oval shaped in front, diamond shaped behind. If we allow flares in the bottom of the hoof, they will eventually reshape the coronary band. So we need to have an image in our mind when dressing the hoof to the ideal shape. Eventually this will reshape the coronary band that was originally crooked. Correct frog contact with the ground surface is vital for a healthy hoof. The correctly shod horse's hoof print in dirt or sand will show an imprint of the shoe, a raised section indicating the concave sole, and the imprint of the frog. This should also be the imprint in a correctly trimmed barefoot hoof. Frog contact with the ground provides concussion absorption,